Truth doesn't matter. How alternative facts ate the world. People like you are still living in what we call the reality-based community. You believe that solutions emerge from your judicious study of discernible reality. That's not the way the world works anymore. We're an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality. That is, allegedly, a quote from Karl Rove. Now here's Michel Foucault from his book Courage of Truth. Truth is a thing of this world, and it induces regular effects of power. In fact, power produces. It produces reality. It produces domains of objects and rituals of truth. Now it seems oddly appropriate to begin with a quote of contested origin. This wry phrase, the reality-based community, often now used in contrast to the faith-based community, was at first attributed by Ron Suskind in the New York Times to an unnamed senior advisor to George W. Bush, who later was guessed to be Bush's political mastermind, Karl Rove. But Rove was not alone in this apparently brazen opposition to reality. Republican political consultant Frank Luntz made a career out of what he calls exploiting language to sway public opinion by researching what would trigger the right emotional responses. In a 2007 interview on PBS's Frontline, Luntz said, "It's all emotion. But there's nothing wrong with emotion. When we are in love, we are not relational, we are emotional. My job is to look for the words that trigger the emotion. We know that words and emotion together are the most powerful force known to mankind." His two biggest successes were impacting voting and legislation by getting the phrase death tax into wide circulation instead of estate tax, and advising Republicans to refer to climate change instead of the scarier sounding global warming. In a 2002 memo to Bush, Luntz wrote, "The scientific debate is closing against us, but it's not yet closed. There's still a window of opportunity to challenge the science. Voters believe that there is no consensus about global warming within the scientific community. Should the public come to believe that the scientific issues are settled, their views about global warming will change accordingly. Therefore, you need to continue to make the lack of scientific certainty a primary issue in the debate." So, along with ideological destabilizing of concepts like reality and facts, creating confusion about how science works and what scientific evidence shows and whether or not science has a definitive role in discovering truth, has all become part of the Republican playbook. And we can, of course, trace the broader tension about science in America at least as far back as the 1925 Scopes monkey trial, which focused on the illegality of teaching evolution due to its conflict with religion in the state of Tennessee. Culturally, Republican politicians have exploited this tension between religion and science, along with populist anti-intellectualism and appeal to regular folks with traditional family values, despite usually themselves being part of the wealthy elite, educated conservative intelligentsia, and deeply loyal to corporate interests, more so than the common person. But the left has its own ideological issues with science and reason that we will get to shortly. In 2016, the term post-truth was voted Word of the Year by Oxford Dictionary and defined as relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. Post-truth gained prominence as a phrase during the election that year, which saw Trump come to power. Now, here's historian Timothy Snyder writing on the 2021 storming of the Capitol. Post-truth is pre-fascism. When we give up on truth, we concede power to those with the wealth and charisma to create spectacle in its place. Without agreement about some basic facts, citizens cannot form the civil society that would allow them to defend themselves. If we lose the institutions that produce facts that are pertinent to us, then we tend to wallow in attractive abstractions and fictions. Post-truth wears away the rule of law and invites a regime of myth. Like many people, I was deeply disturbed during the 2016 election by the tactic of smearing the supposedly liberal media as proponents of fake news, instead of addressing the facts, the evidence, and the arguments at hand. This political style has correctly been identified by many as an authoritarian maneuver that completely bypasses the convention in liberal democracies of engaging openly, even if contentiously, with a free press. It also establishes a conspiratorial prophylactic against any legitimate critique, because that's just what the mainstream media says, and you can't trust any of them ever. In a now infamous speech captured on film shortly after Trump's victory, white supremacist leader Richard Spencer used what he calls the original German to refer to the Lügenpresse, or lying press. He then led the audience in a series of Heil Trump, Heil our people, Heil our victory cries as they performed Nazi salutes. Now, the irony, of course, is that the accusation of dishonesty is pure misdirection, and the Trump orbit appeals to what is objectively true were replaced by shameless spin and propaganda, established right after inauguration by Anne Conway's iconic coining of the term alternative facts in service of her boss's default reflex to lie about everything in self-contradictory and incoherent ways. On pointing this out to a Trump supporter I know, the reply was not to deny it, but rather to retort that all politicians lie. Democrats just don't like it when they're not getting to lie while in power. All of the media apparently lies too, and all of politics is just dishonest, self-serving argumentation. At least Trump is open about it. Awful. But hold up, because as I have been teasing so far, extreme skepticism on the existence of truth beyond personal agenda and desire for power is not unique to the right. It may in fact be central to a set of ideas that underlie and are gaining ascendancy in today's left-wing ideology as well.